in this regard. And then the second part of my question has to do with, we already spoke earlier about the challenges of small and medium-sized businesses in participating in world trade. And our first speaker, Professor Gemanot, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, mentioned that what small and medium-sized businesses can do is they can import ideas. And I wonder about the notion of exporting services or importing services as a mechanism for importing ideas, and I'd appreciate comments from the panelists on this. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wei, perhaps you'd like to address the...
So the question you raised just now is realized by Chinese government. That means China's focus on SME has already been increased. I just come back from Japan. Not only you, but also many SME in Japan told me that the Sino-Japan Trade and Economic Cooperation mainly existing in some big enterprises in automobile and some major industries. So in this regard, we are going to take some lessons and the practice done by France and Italy in coping with the business with SME. For example, in World Expo in Shanghai, we will have this kind of discussion and forum. And Chinese service trade, in this respect, is a little bit low, less than $20 billion US, but much higher than 10 years ago, especially solving the employment problem of the university students, as well as for the students of other colleges and secondary colleges and technical schools. And also those people who work in software program. These people could, this one white collar can innovate and lead 5 more blue collar employee. So that's why Chinese government put Shanghai as the financial center and set Chongqing as the financial center in Changjiang, in the upstream of Changjiang River.
Thank you. And if I understood the second question correctly about the importation of services, has anyone got any thoughts? Harry, have you got any thoughts about that? A developing economy or a developed country like America exporting services? How do people import those services? How do countries go about importing those services is the way I understood the question.
I'm not sure that, I guess the one area that comes to mind is back office services. And actually what's been very interesting to me in the work that I've been doing in Africa has been in Anglophone countries. We have seen over the last decade a migration of relatively small firms that were once in the US that migrated to India, have now begun to migrate to Anglophone African countries and are now offering back office services back to the States or the UK. And this has become quite a growing business, and it speaks to the question I think that all of us are raising, that services trade is a growing part of South-South trade and investment, and all too often has been ignored.
Thanks, Harry. I think we've got time for one more very quick question. Right over the very back there, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Afolayan, UN Industry Specialist, Ministry of Economic Planning in the Gambia. I just have two quick questions. The very first one is for the South African Trade Minister. We're trying to promote South-South trade cooperation. But the challenge is, I'm sure you're aware that in Africa, intertrade is very, very, very low. For instance, in ECOWAS sub-region, if you were to be bringing goods from Lagos, Nigeria to Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, you will be confronted with 59 roadblocks, according to UNECA. So all the protocols are there, ratified and signed by government. And I was just wondering, how do we get the commitment of African government to promote trade facilitation? That's to the trade minister for South Africa. And the second question very quickly is for the ambassador. You did mention in your 6 points that we should direct and manage investment flows into countries. Would this not, in order to protect local industries, would this not encourage protectionism over time? Thank you.
Rob, roadblocks.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I think that the point about issues other than tariffs is a very critical one. I'll just give an example that South Africa has had a very large trade imbalance with its neighbors in SADC going back historically for a long time. And since 2005 in the SADC free trade agreement, we have already removed duties on 98% of products coming from the rest of SADC. Now, if you look at the trade pattern now, it's pretty much what it always was. So it's telling us that there are things other than tariffs that are the issues. And I think some of the issues are what was mentioned by the speaker, that there are a whole lot of other regulations, transport regulations, border delays, inefficiencies of border posts, all sorts of things like that. And I think that's part of it. And in the SADC context, we are currently involved in a trade facilitation discussion, which is called Making the FTA Work. And then the third issue, which I raised earlier, was that it's not just that, it goes beyond that as well. It's issues to do with infrastructure. So, for example, when we're talking about this grand FTA I'm talking about, along with that is going an idea of a north-south corridor, transport corridor, which is going more or less from DRC, Tanzania, through Zambia, Zimbabwe, and then to the port of Durban. And the whole idea there is that we need to use a transport corridor both to improve infrastructure and also to crowd in a whole series of investments that can generate productive activity. And then beyond that, I think it's cooperation around real economy development, because very often it's not, in the case of our neighbors, it's not that there's tariffs in place, because they're not. It may not even be so much that the border regulations are a problem, but it's the ability to generate and produce goods and then get them into the South African market that are going to sell there in competition with other things. Those are the issues, and I think that that's why I was saying that regional integration in developing regions, I think, has got a lot of complex issues like that, and we really need to get quite a lot of agendas going together.
Thanks, Rob. Ambassador.
Well, the point that I was making when I spoke about regulating investment flows is exactly the opposite of encouraging protectionist trends. What I was saying was that you need to provide a very predictable, transparent policy framework to facilitate investments. And secondly, sudden inflows of hot money can have a disruptive impact on economies in terms of inflation and so on. And therefore, there is a need to develop international best practice disciplines to see that these hot money flows are brought in without any disruptive impacts. Thanks.
Thanks, Ambassador. Okay, I'm going to hand it back to Wilhelm now for a quick sum up, because we're running out of time, and some of our panel members have to rush off to the airport. Wilhelm.
Right. Thank you very much. It's going to be a couple of minutes only. I've got 8 pages of notes, but I won't take you through all of that. That would be prohibitive for your lunch and for Harry, who has to catch a plane later this afternoon. So the questions we started with about sustainability of exports in the context of recovery. There is recovery, but will export growth and export-led growth remain the same as it